This is Creepy and Geeky, a part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcast Network. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and today's episode is part 3 in my Chucky series, and we'll be talking about Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky. Joining me for this episode is Angel Krause. Angel is the host of the Voices from the Mausoleum YouTube channel, where she talks about all kinds of horror stuff, including movies, books, and video games. Welcome back to the show, Angel.
Hi, Robert. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, it's always good to have you on.
Oh, it's always good to be here.
All right. So yeah, today we are talking some Chucky. Specifically, like I said, Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky. Two of the so the first 3 obviously revolved around Chucky trying to either possess or kill Andy Barclay. And Bride of Chucky starts a whole new era. And it's interesting because there are like 4 distinct eras of like Chucky stuff. You got the first 3, and you got these 2, Bride and Seed, and they're kind of a package deal in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Curse and Cult in the next one, and then you have the TV show era. So but what's really awesome is that none of these contradict each other. They're all in compatibility with each other, which is like what makes it really cool. And having the same writer and producer on this has been like on all of these movies and in the TV series has made this one of the most cohesive and consistent horror franchises that there ever has been. So
yeah, and to go this long, like I was just talking about this with somebody else because like we technically had a remake, but the original just like never stopped, like it just the story for it continued to go on into the now what we have is the series, and it's pretty interesting to think about because I just think when I think about the franchise, like as all the movies and things that I've seen, I don't always think about that, but it is pretty interesting when you look at when it came, because the first one came out in 88 and then you're talking about it still going in 23. Like it's wild.
Yeah 35, it's like 35 years ago this year since it came out. So
crazy.
Yeah wow. I know, it makes me feel really, really old. I am really old, so that makes sense.
Chucky came out the year I was born. Or the first Child's Play came out the year I was born.
Wow.
So
okay. I was 14, so I was already a teenager when that came out.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. So I haven't seen any of the Chucky movies in the theaters. I didn't see most of them, I would say, until much later. I'm pretty sure I saw the first one. I know I saw Bride and Seed not too long after they came out on video.
Yeah.
Everything else, 2, 3, Curse and Cult were much later. Bride and Seed, they are what I feel like it took Chucky to where we know of him more today than even the first 3 movies, because the first 3 movies were good, and Chucky was definitely really good straight out the bat, but it's Bride of Chucky really that really takes him to that next level, adding in Tiffany and just and again, what's interesting about it is it's in the post Scream era, so you get the more comedy in it, even more so than there had been before, and just this extra level of insaneness that hadn't really been in the franchise before then. And they tried, obviously, but it feels like definitely with Bride and Seed they were pushing the envelope a lot more with where they wanted to go with it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because like I actually saw the first one, when I was pretty young because I've been watching scary movies since I was really little. And but the first one that I remember like as a whole experience is actually Bride of Chucky because I keeping in mind of course that these movies are not suitable for children. I
Right.
I especially the older one, I mean the older ones, the later ones. But so I saw Bride of Chucky. I talked my dad into renting it from like a Blockbuster or something for my birthday. Like I had a sleepover with like a bunch of my friends, and that was the movie that we watched. And that's what I remember about like seeing a Chucky movie for like the first time. I remember getting that movie and like not all of my friends were on board. Like like I was still, being younger and into horror, like it was not very common. And so I remember like, even my best friend, like she remembers this vividly for a few reasons, but she was like not a fan of having to watch that movie when we were teenagers. And it's the first one that I have like an actual memory of the first time I saw it because, and I think I've talked to you about this before, but like I didn't get super, super into horror movies until I was substantially older. I mean, I was in my late 20 or mid to late 20s. And so I
Right.
actually saw one and three and then eventually went back and saw the second one. But, and then, obviously I'd seen Bride of Chucky by then and then seeing those. And then eventually I saw Seed of Chucky, and then I saw the other two, Cult and Curse, like right around the times that they came out because I was a little bit older. But it was just interesting. Like that's really the first memory I have of a Chucky movie was seeing Bride of Chucky at a sleepover with friends when we were way too young to be watching it, like way
I
too
think
young.
most people, yeah, I think most people get to see horror movies way too young. I think we are all like have that experience and just like, yeah, that's not, is sometimes you're ready for it and sometimes you're not.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah.
I think I turned out okay. I guess I don't really. I guess it's debatable, but I think yeah, it was. So it was funny when we talked about doing this, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Brad Chucky." That's like the first one I remember actually watching because I didn't become a fan of the original three until I was a little bit older. So it's
Right.
pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, this is, I wouldn't even say I became a fan of Chucky until after about 2018 when I got heavier into horror and I bought
Yeah.
the big Blu-ray collection of all of the movies.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I watched them all and finally got to see the whole series. And yeah, at that point I
Yeah.
was just like, yeah, these are really, really fun. And I liked how, like I said before, how cohesive and consistent the narrative is throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
That even if there is maybe an inconsistency here or there, it gets addressed later or just gets ignored and not in a way that um, makes you have to worry about the consistency, not like something like with Nightmare on Elm Street or uh,
Right.
Halloween or Friday the 13th series. Those are just wildly all over the place. And so it's
Yeah. Well, and you talked about like it coming, post screen, and I mean,
mhm,
I think Bride of Chucky is really when it started to get like a little meta, like it pokes fun at itself.
yeah.
There's comments that she makes where she's like, God, like you and that knife, like you got to get creative and come into the new century. Like, like there's these
Yeah.
comments about the franchise as a whole and how is it going to work in a newer setting when a possessed doll with a knife may not be scary anymore because all the people that used to scare are now adults, and it's just
Right.
an
Yeah.
interesting kind of commentary on itself and on its own franchise, which is a very meta thing to do.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, it's it this and introducing Tiffany into the whole mix
Oh yeah.
was just like Jennifer Tilly is so good in the role.
Oh
And I love what they do going forward with this, and we'll get into it more with Seed of Chucky, but
yeah.
just everything about this movie is great, at least in terms of the dolls and
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer Tilly
Yeah.
as Tiffany. Beyond that, the rest of the human characters are kind of like bleh.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Katherine Heigl. Um she's just, oh, she, to me, she just never brings enough to the table in terms of acting. Um, so which
Yeah.
is why I'm not too sad to see her kind of drift away a little bit.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
think her
it's
star
very
got her
mediocre.
yeah, her star got like risen up way high because of like Grey's Anatomy and stuff. And I'm just like, she's not that good of an actress. She's okay. She's not terrible, but I
Sure.
just didn't think she had that quality that would propel her to stardom in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And so it's funny to see her in these early horror movies like this and like Valentine. Um, so it's just she's barely in Valentine, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
just it's interesting to see her in this kind of stuff. Because I did watch her, and that was one of the things too, is like I used to watch that show Roswell, that she
Oh,
first gained attention on.
yep.
That was a good show. I like
That
that
was a
show.
great show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
And
Jason
what and I
Bear, he turned into like he's been in a few other horror things too since then, and I liked him. I
yeah,
liked him a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um and then um um and I lived in New Mexico at the time, so it was even more relevant. So
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was a lot of fun. But I've actually never been to Roswell. So I lived in Albuquerque. But it's but yeah, watching this movie and the other thing in this, John Ritter is so it's so weird to see him in this movie. And to be
Yeah.
playing such a like a jerk the whole time. Like it would have
Hmm.
been I don't know. I think it would have been more fun if he'd had more of a different character and had been able to play with it a little bit more. He was just so straight and normal in it that it just didn't play to his strengths. Um,
Yeah. The
so,
original
but
three, it's more like the characters are you get invested in them and they become like
yeah,
they're obviously like an equal part of the story, whereas the
right,
human characters, while they're there for, the important things we need, like driving our dolls around and
yeah,
like for a reason that they would be running away or like just the setup for the story, like outside of that, they're really just they're sidebar things. They're not, you don't really focus a lot, or they're not what you walk away from this movie remembering or thinking about. That's for sure.
right, exactly. No, and you bring up a good point that this Bride of Chucky was the moment where the franchise shifted away from the humans dealing with Chucky to being
Hmm.
about Chucky. It's all there in the
Yep.
title. The every movie from that point on becomes about Chucky.
Yep.
It's no longer the Child's Play franchise. It is the Chucky franchise. And that
Yeah,
was smart. That was very smart of them to do.
I agree.
I don't I don't know if that was necessarily um Mancini getting the chance to finally do what he wanted to do with the series, even
Yeah.
more so. But whatever it was, I'm glad they did it. This was the last one that was not directed by him. Um, first four directed by other people, and then he finally gets to direct the last three.
Yep.
And it's this one's wild. I love this one. It's probably my favorite of all of them. Because it's just this because it just pushes that narrative forward. Like I said, they Tiffany resurrects Chucky. Tiffany's his old girlfriend from the past, and we get more of their relationship history in the TV series. So if anybody hasn't checked that out, definitely check out that, especially the first season, where it
Yeah,
goes into
fills in
more
a
of their history.
lot of gaps. Yeah.
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 Um,
I liked it. I thought the adding, first of all, I mean, Tiffany is my favorite character from this franchise. I think every moment that Jennifer Tilly has screen time, whether it's as a doll or as her human self, is iconic. Like my
oh
favorite
yeah.
episodes of the show so far, including the new season, have all been episodes that strictly revolve around Tiffany and and her relationship as Jennifer Tilly and that kind of thing. But it's just interesting because like it also brings in this really weird like there's this over romanticizing of like serial killers and death and morbidity and all these things, and it kind of like touches on these in a really weird way because she's got like this guy that she's keeping around and he's like faking that he's killing people for the sake of impressing her, and it's just got like some really interesting things going on because she's not just like this super naive person who thinks like, oh, he didn't do it. She's like, no, he did it, and I helped, and I want to
Right.
be a part of it. Like it's so
Yeah.
wild and so fun.
Yeah. No, and that's what makes it a lot of fun is you get this extra person, this extra foil, like before she becomes a doll. You get this whole aspect of it that, is just fantastic. This extra backstory to his whole story that just makes everything even better. And then she does become the doll. And after that, it's just even better. Just yeah, no, Jennifer Tilly, adding Jennifer Tilly to this franchise was the best thing they could have ever done. And it just, and that's what makes Bride of Chucky so good, is like you get her in the beginning as human Tiffany, and then you get her at the end as doll Tiffany, and it just works. It makes sense. It all works together. Now he has somebody else to kill along with, and have all that going on. And it just adds so much more to it all. That, and like I said, it's now Chucky's story. It's now always about him, and the focus is on him, and now Tiffany as well. But it's no longer about the human characters as much. So
yeah, and it's also interesting because like Tiffany is the only person, whether in doll form or human form, that's like not really scared of him. Like there are times where he like makes her uncomfortable, but for the most part, she's like she argues with him, she threatens him, like she's not like not walking into the situation this like scared little like what I mean? Like she just is very outspoken. She tells him how she feels, even when they don't agree, like they argue. And I just think it just made for such a really funny dynamic because it's such a serious situation to be a serial killer,
right.
but then you add this like old married couple like not really getting like I don't know, it just added such a like a silly note, but like you said, I mean it works really really well. Her addition was seamless, and the story for her coming into the picture and bringing him back, like it just I didn't doubt or question a second of it.
Right, yeah. No, and it just like, and that's what's funny about it too, is like you could like, especially, this is a series that by this point it's like it's the fourth movie in, and it could have gone, it could have gotten tired, it could have gotten old.
Oh yeah.
And this could have not have worked. But it just worked so well that,
Yeah.
like I said, even the other human characters, as boring as they are, and just kind of like, okay, don't care if they're easily dispatched or not, um that you don't care, because everything else going on with Chucky and Tiffany is just so top notch, that
Yeah.
it just makes it work. And it re-energized the series in a way. And it's so funny that they went into Seed of Chucky next, and Seed of Chucky takes such a wild swing with what they do. um but they actually got less money for Seed of Chucky, even after Bride of Chucky was, I think the biggest hit for the whole franchise. And then they're just like, okay, well, here's only a little bit of money now. so
Oh, that's weird. I
so
didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. So, and like I think it was like, yeah, they with Seed of Chucky, like the first four, I think the first one was done with Universal. um
Mm-hmm.
and then the next three were done with somebody else. Can't remember, I could be misspeaking. But then Seed of Chucky was done with another company again, and then Curse and Cult went back to whatever the company was that did 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
um Let me look at it real quick, because now I want to make sure I'm saying this right. um
Yeah, I didn't know they
uh,
got less money for seed. Maybe that
yeah,
maybe
and that's what's,
maybe every like as a whole they were just like, okay, this might be too far. Like maybe
and yeah, and that's fair. I totally get it. That's totally
yeah, it
fair.
is it definitely gets out there. It really,
It
Bride
really
and Seed
does.
definitely set the tone for what becomes the TV show because it's even
Right.
crazier than these
Yeah.
movies.
Let's see. No, it said it at some point. Okay, so the first film was done by MGM.
Okay.
And then Universal got it for 2, 3, 4, and um um Person Cult. It's Seed of Chucky was the only other one to not be done by Universal for some weird reason. It must just be because Seed of Chucky was so wild and out there. They were just like, we don't know if this is really going to work. And it
Yeah,
kind of didn't. It didn't really work for audiences at the time. It's definitely come around since then. So
yeah, I'm starting to see more defense for it now than I was
oh
before.
yeah. Well, and I think it also helps that they've integrated, because after that, with Curse and Cult, they didn't kind of they kind of ignored aspects of what happened in Seed.
Mm-hmm.
And then even the first season of um the Chucky TV series, they mention kind of offhandedly, Chucky mentions that he's got a queer kid. But
Yeah, they talk about, yeah. Yep.
yeah, and so, and which is great, but then it's really with this second season that they brought
Yep.
Glenn and Glinda back, uh and I'm currently in the middle of watching the second season, so that's why I said this season.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they've been more fully integrated into everything, and like second season really kind of plays into, and I'm only about halfway through, but really plays into a lot of that kind of wackiness and craziness that was in Seed of Chucky. So
Yeah, no, it definitely goes back to that and brings it all back up to the surface.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, talking about Bride of Chucky, like it's Bride of Chucky is, it's kind of hard, like I don't have as much to talk about it, even though it's probably my favorite of them, because it's pretty outside of the whole Chucky and Tiffany stuff. There's
Yeah.
not a lot that is original or all that fun and interesting. Like I said before, the regular characters in the movie are kind of
Mm-hmm.
bland and dull to me. They're not exciting at all. What's all exciting is just the Tiffany and Chucky aspects of it. And that's really fun because, it's not just that she goes along with him. She challenges him every step of the way. Like you said before,
Oh, yeah.
he needs to come into the 90s and everything, that, he instead of using a knife, and so he uses like a nail gun or something later. And
Yeah.
so it's that kind of stuff that's more fun, that she's there to kind of challenge him and to um be that antagonizing force, somebody that he both hates and loves at the same time. So that's
Yeah.
what makes it a lot really interesting. That's what makes it a lot more interesting for me than anything else. But again, that doesn't give me a whole lot to talk about either. So
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah,
It's more about discussing the concept and what it did for the franchise
yeah, exactly.
more than
Um,
anything else. Yeah.
yeah, and there is a lot there, and like I said, I think that what's best about it is that it opens that up and kind of continues to open up the world, gives you just that little bit of a taste of where they're gonna go.
Yeah.
And they go super wild in the next one, in Seed of Chucky, almost too far in a way, so much so that they end up having to pull it back a little bit for the next ones after that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah. Speed of Chucky was, comparatively speaking, it was definitely a big jump in a different direction.
right,
Yeah.
but I think ultimately in the direction that makes the franchise work best.
Yeah. I agree.
Like I think they went a little farther with it than they did, and I think that's what makes the show, the TV series, better, is because it still has that part of it, without being um uh completely super out there, like what Seed of Chucky does. It pulls it back just enough to still make it fun and interesting and goofy and weird, without being too far. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean, this gets into like weird anatomy things and like
Right.
this discussion of like, because like they're arguing about whether their kid is a boy or a girl, and then with the whole like the whole plan, like the whole, I guess it's like the sexual elements in this are some like where there's some awkward moments as a viewer where you're just like, we're really
Yeah.
talking about this. We're really doing this right now. Like, and, you know, like there's that one scene in particular where like Tiffany's got the turkey baster and she's like,
Right.
creating life is so beautiful. Or forget what she says, but you're just like, is it? I feel I feel like this isn't very beautiful. I just
Yeah.
it's awfully gross. But there's just some things in this that you're wondering going into a movie about the offspring of two possessed dolls. You're like, is this gonna be what I think it is? And then it is. It ends up being exactly what you think it is.
Oh man, it goes even farther than you think it is. That's what's fun.
Yes.
That's both
Yes.
fun and funny and weird about it all. And this is and it's interesting too because this is the only Chucky movie that's got any nudity in it. Most of the R rating in any of these movies is mostly just the
The
language and some of
language.
the violence. Because
Mm-hmm.
even the violence in them isn't super crazy bad.
Right.
Um, usually, but this one, the Seed of Chucky, just kind of this is the first one that Don Mancini got to direct. And I
Mm-hmm.
think even um without the budget that they'd had on previous installments,
Mm-hmm.
that he was just like, you know what, I'm going to make this may be my one and only chance to direct. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
make this the wildest thing ever.
Yep.
I'm going to get out every little thing I want to get out in there. And in a lot of ways it honestly really does work. It's weird and kind of off-putting in some ways, but when you look back on it, like I remember when I first saw it. So I rented
Mm-hmm.
it from Netflix back when they still did the DVDs, like back before they did streaming. So,
Yeah.
and so this was when my daughter Katrina was 3. Okay, when this came out on DVD, and this is when I watched it. So, funny story. I was my wife was going to bed, and I was like, I'm going to stay up. I'm going to watch this movie, so we can send it back or whatever. And then Katrina, being 3, she wanted to sit up because this is what she wanted, like all the time. She would never go to bed if anybody else was awake. Um, and so she sat up and watched the movie with me, because I'm a bad parent and I let her watch it. Um, because I was a kid and I watched horror movies and I didn't turn out bad. So,
Right.
debatable,
Exactly.
but whatever. Um, but yeah, no, so she sat up and watched it. A couple of weeks later, we were at Walmart and we were like, okay, kids, go. We were in the movie section. We're like, you guys can pick out one DVD each. And she picked out Seed of Chucky. And I bought it for her. And so she would watch that thing all the time.
That
She
is so funny.
loved that movie as a
Oh my
little kid.
god.
Yes, I am a horrible parent. But she loved it. It didn't scar her any. She didn't even remember it really later on.
Yeah.
She ended up not liking horror for a good portion. And she kind of goes into the story of that in our recent Saw episode. And so the and so um she later on got into horror again, but there was a good time there between her love of Seed of Chucky and then in her like middle school teen years that she just hated horror. She was afraid of it. Um, but
Yeah.
so Seed of Chucky is just so funny to me because it holds that weird place of being my daughter's first like horror love. Um, and I liked it at the time. I didn't love it. I thought it was weird and like I said, like off-putting and everything like that. It was way too campy in a way that at the time I wasn't super into.
Yeah.
But having rewatched it over the course of the last couple of years, I've enjoyed it more. I love a good meta narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So having Jennifer Tilly actually playing herself and playing Tiffany in this was just like it was so good. It was so funny. And like everything that she was so good at in Bride of Chucky, coming into Seed of Chucky, she was even better. So
Yeah.
This was
I
fantastic
It
to me.
had been like so long since I had seen this. I actually rewatched it, just to get ready to talk about it. And
Right.
I mean, I remembered most of it. It's not. I feel like it's not a movie if you've seen as an adult that you're just going to easily forget, um,
Right.
because there's just so much insanity going on. But yeah,
Right.
it's and then because I have seen the show and I'm caught up on the show, I had forgotten a few things. Like I'd forgotten about the one of the things I couldn't remember when we meet Glenn and Glenda in the show was I was like, why are there two? Like I didn't remember that detail
Right.
until I rewatched Seed of Chucky to get ready for this conversation. But yeah, it's interesting because it's Jennifer Tilly is herself, Redman is himself, and this weird like they're like, oh, we're gonna because Tiffany's like a huge fan of Jennifer Tilly's. So she's
Right.
like, oh, she's like, I get to be Jennifer Tilly. And there's like that one scene, I thought this was so funny, where they're on the phone with Joan or Joanne or whatever her name is, the like assistant or
The
whatever.
assistant. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, you said that. And she's like, no, I didn't. But it's because
Right.
Tiffany is also on the phone. And it just creates this like super chaotic, but kind of fun, silly, over the top scene that, I don't know. I thought this one was really fun. It's weird. It's definitely a weird movie, but I think that it's an interesting thing to think about somebody going in and making this movie and not being afraid to make it weird because like you said,
Right.
like it still worked. It wasn't something that, at the end of it, it may not be a lot of people's favorites, but I think at the end of it, I mean, it was still an entertaining movie and it
Right.
really paved the way for the show. I don't think the
Yeah.
show would be anywhere near where it is if it had not been for Seed of Chucky.
Right. And especially for some of those key episodes in the middle of the second season that I'm right
Yes.
around right now, the stuff with that focuses really on Tiffany and Glenn and Glenda and all that. If you don't know what's going on, but if you haven't watched Seed of Chucky and you're just totally in the blind on
It
this,
doesn't, yeah,
um,
it doesn't hit the same at all.
no, it doesn't. And
It does
that's
not
what
hit the
that
same.
and that's what's kind of fun going back and rewatching all the movies again for this series, and then rewatching like so I had only seen the first season of Chucky
Yeah.
up until recently. And
Yeah.
I just started the second season of that because it finally is on streaming. Um and so now I'm slowly but surely catching up. Like I said, I'm in the middle of season 2, so I'm getting there. It's taking me a while, but I'm getting there, and I'm loving the meta aspect of it, where we get in the show we've gotten Gina Gershon and Joe Pantaleone
Oh
and
my
Meg
God.
Tilly and everything. All that is so great. And then you find out that she actually has Jennifer Tilly still trapped in the original Tiffany doll, or
Yeah,
the Tiffany, at
in
least the
a
Tiffany
cage,
doll in a
answering
cage,
fan mail and writing checks.
right? And playing online poker for her. It's like,
I'm telling
and,
you, that episode, the murder mystery dinner episode, is my favorite
yes.
episode of season 2.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's so good. I
It's so
love that they
funny.
took the time to focus on her and that storyline rather
Yeah.
than, as much as, Chucky's the name of the show and everything like that. I feel like Tiffany is just so integral to the whole story that not having a focus on her also um was like, especially with like Curse and Cult. Like I love those movies, they're both really good, but I
Hmm.
think taking her out of them and only putting her barely in them, because she's in them but she's only
Yeah.
barely in them, and
Yeah.
so taking her out of those kind of like, is kind of jarring, but I like
Yeah.
what they did with that. They kind of like went back to the horror roots of it all and everything, while still maintaining that narrative. um but yeah, no, I think that, and it's so funny too, because you are we've talked about this. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show, but you're not a big fan of horror comedy. um
No, I'm really not. I'm so picky. And then it's
every
funny
episode
because
you've come onto my show for
that's
has
what
been
we
about horror comedies.
yeah,
So
I know. But it's funny because like I think one of the biggest things for me is I a lot of times I feel like there are some that are not set up to be honest about the fact that they're horror comedies. So then when I go into them, I'm like annoyed because I'm like, okay, well, I wish that I'd had, because it's very hard for me as a viewer to go into something not realizing it's going to be funny. But
Right.
like, like when I went into the werewolf movies, like I knew what those were. So it was much
Right.
easier for me to kind of turn that off, and just like watch them
Right.
and enjoy them. And it's the same thing, with this. I mean, and of course, when I was so young when I saw Bride of Chucky, like I didn't have the opinions that I do now on any of that. And so
Right.
I was just so much more open-minded to it, And then like I just recently watched WNUF Halloween special. Okay. Everyone, like so many
Yes.
people have been talking about this movie. No one told me that it's a gag. Like no one. Everyone's like, oh, it's like Ghost Watch. And so I'm going in expecting Ghost Watch and I watch it and it's like not Ghost Watch on pretty much any freaking level. And so I was, by the end of it, I was so angry because it was meant to be this like frou-frou silly Halloween commercialism thing. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't sign up for that. I signed up for
Yeah.
Ghost Watch. And so, but so when things are honest that they're like that, I can, like Renfield. Like I went into Renfield ready to laugh and have a good time, but
Yeah.
I have to know that's what I'm going
Gotcha.
into. And I
Yeah.
don't always prioritize them, but I'll give them a chance at least if I know that that's what I'm going into. Like Cabin in the Woods, I didn't know Cabin in the Woods was like that. And so the first time I ever saw it,
Oh.
I was like, literally at the end, I was like, I don't get it. And then, upon a second watch, now it's one of my favorites. I love it, but it's just I
Yeah.
have to know about it going into it because otherwise
Okay. Okay.
it's just it's hard to switch mindsets for me.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. No, I can understand that. I didn't like WNUF either. I think I gave it 2.5 stars on Letterboxd because, like I said in the review on there, because I just looked it up because I was like, what did I think of that? Because I remembered not really because yeah, everybody fucking hypes it up
Oh,
as
it's
this
so
like
annoying.
great fucking thing. And it's just like, but that's the thing that kills me. Like there's so much, like I was glad to see, I saw you recently said that you actually liked Talk to Me.
I
Because
did like Talk to Me.
yeah,
Shocker. Yeah.
because you and I no, you and I come from the same like kind of perspective on that. That if a movie is getting super hyped up, that it
Mm-hmm.
makes you not want to watch it
So
because
does. It's so
because
true.
because so many people hype up the weirdest shit that
Yep.
I end up not liking.
Yeah.
And so it's just bizarre when and so but here's my thing. If I before people start hyping it up, if I like something, this is why I watch trailers because I know there's some people who just don't watch trailers and they try to go in as blind as possible. I can't
Mm-hmm.
do that. I need to know at
Mm-hmm.
least a little bit about the movie so I know if I'm going to
Yeah.
be interested in it.
Yeah. I have a hard
So
time going in blind.
yeah, so for like
Yeah.
Talk to Me, I was totally on board because
Yeah.
I wasn't actually totally on board. That one I was kind of like, okay, it could be good. I
I
don't
was
know.
like
So
that
I was
too,
kind of on
especially
the
because it's
yeah.
A24. I was like, I don't know. I hate A24. I'm like,
Your
I don't
hate
know, guys. I don't
your hate for
know.
A24 is so funny because it's like there are some good movies there. I agree. There's a lot of like a lot of junk on there that I have no desire to watch, but they have some good stuff.
Yeah,
So
this one was good. Talk to Me was good.
yeah.
I will say this, not to sound like myself here, but I do still think it was a bit overhyped, but I did actually genuinely end up really enjoying it. I wasn't as like
Right.
in love with it. It's not contender for the like movie of the year or anything, but I did really like it. I thought it was really unique and it was pretty wild. So I did agree.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I just recently saw that people seem to be a bit divided on is the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Now, this one,
Oh yeah.
because I'm a big fan of the games, I wanted to go into this one
Yeah.
blind, and I don't do that often. But I already had the Willy's Wonderland is on this untouchable
Right.
pedestal, right? And so I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
I've seen you talking about these on Twitter
oh
lately. So
Jesus Christ. It's like the one I'm telling you, anybody who knows, and you know this about me, I welcome conversations of different opinions on movies. Like I
right.
genuinely
Yeah.
am like, we can
Same.
talk about these things. I don't know if I can do it with my like I'm reading these opinions and I'm like, no. But it's just one of those things. But that one,
Well,
I genuinely, I was like, I'm gonna go in really blind to this because I need to not have an expectation. And
yeah.
it didn't matter. But I was like, I need to go into this without knowing anything. And I just felt like I was going to be doing myself a disservice if I continue to see the trailers, if I continue to look at the pictures and read the articles and look at stuff. Like, so I just made myself, and it's so hard in this space, as you know, someone who's a content
Oh
creator, like
yeah.
it's so difficult to do that. But it
It's
ended
really
up not
hard, yeah.
mattering. It still didn't win me over. But it was just one of those things that's like, and then there's people who are like, no, this is like movie of the year. And I'm
Oh my
like, I don't
God.
know. I don't know that that's true. But anyway, so yeah, it's so
Yeah.
hard when things are hyped. It's so difficult.
Yeah, and see, I've never played the games. I don't know much about them.
Yeah.
But I'm mildly interested in it. I'll probably watch it sometime soon on Peacock. I'm not gonna go out to the theater to go see it, but
No, I watched it
um
on Peacock. I would love to hear your opinion after you do, specifically
yeah.
because you're not into the games, or you know,
Right.
like,
And this is what's interesting to me too. It seems like most people who like the game series have enjoyed the movie, because I guess it's kind of lore heavy. But I'm
yeah, a lot of Easter eggs and stuff too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's actually surprising that you like the games or you played the games and you didn't care for the movie.
My
Um
this sounds so funny because I don't really know what else to call them, but this is what I've been saying. My new kids, I have two new kids in my life, and they are
right.
10 and 11, and they're big game. They love the games. They're like those like rabbit hole down the theory, like into the
Yeah.
YouTubes about like all these things. And so they ate it up. I mean, they ate it up. They absolutely loved it. And I was not going to rain on their parade. I'm not that type of adult.
Right.
I enjoyed it with them. We laughed, we talked about stuff. Like it was a great experience. But at the
Yeah.
end of it, like I was telling my partner, I was like, please don't let them watch the video.
Right.
I don't want to ruin that memory. Like, can we not just, can you tell them not to? But you
Oh
know,
man.
I say all of that, and I do mean this. I do like that there's things for people to enjoy. I think my biggest thing is this was
Yeah.
very PG-13, and I needed it to
Oh
push
yeah,
it
yeah.
a little further than it. But I'll be curious to see what your thoughts are once you watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll try to watch it soon. I gotta try to fit it in at some point. But but yeah, I don't I like Josh Hutcherson.
Oh, me too.
So I have I've always enjoyed pretty much anything he's been in that I've seen.
It's got
But
our boy Stu in it.
yeah, yeah.
He's in
So
that.
I don't know how big his part is in the movie, but uh which is again one of those things where like I said, I watch trailers but I don't watch the clips. That's one of the weird things, like that I think that's too much watching of stuff. Like if I'm interested in the movie, I'll watch the trailers for it, but I won't watch that. Like the week before a new movie comes out, they'll start releasing these 2-minute
Oh
clip
my God.
from
Yes.
this movie. I'm like, I'm not watching that. That's to me is too spoilery. I want to go into watching the movie. I'll watch the trailer, but I'm not
Yep.
watching a clip because I want to watch the whole movie as it comes out. But uh
Yeah.
but yeah, so that one, eh. But yeah, I'm with you on the like the overhype on stuff. It's just it because that's happened to me before where I've watched something that people hype up so
Oh, I
much.
know.
And it and it's the same thing. You have hyped up something so much, and I've watched something. I'm like, I don't like that so much.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
it works across. It works like that for
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah,
Even people that I have faith in, like people who I like never disagree on movies with,
right.
will do
Yeah,
something and then I'll watch it and I'll go, I don't even know you anymore.
yeah.
It's like it's
And
such a
to me,
dramatic
that's
response.
fascinating. No, I
It's
love that.
crazy.
I love that everybody we can all agree on certain things, and there's some stuff we're just going to disagree on. And that's what makes it so much fun when you do have these conversations in a lot of ways too, is that you can have those disagreements. But yeah, I was glad to see that you actually enjoyed talking to me because I know that you had like you were on the same page with me in the beginning about it just being like, oh, this thing's super hyped up. I don't know if it's going to be any good because it looked mildly interesting to me, but not enough that I was like, oh, I have to go see this.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I waited
But
for
I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. But
yeah.
you know, I'm also the kind of person that like Barbarian had gotten super hyped up, and I was really afraid of that one, and I really enjoyed that one.
Ooh, yeah,
But I
that's not
yeah,
I hated Barbarian. I hated
No,
it
that's
so much.
fine.
It was the same thing for me. Well, and the thing for me is like, I don't have a
Barbarian, I
problem.
can see people not liking. That one's a weird ass movie. So
Well, and
it
for
just
me,
worked
it
for
was
me.
more of like everybody painted it to be the super unique movie. Okay. And
Oh
while
yeah.
I would agree that there are pieces that are unique, this is not a creature design we've never seen before. It's not a
Right.
setup we have never seen before. There's very few things. And so it was one of these things where it's like, and that's fine. It's fine for movies to be things that we've already seen because at this point it's really difficult to not be. So I don't even I don't have it
Exactly.
against movies like that. But when it is so overly pushed that it's so wildly different than anything you've ever seen, and I've literally seen all of it,
Right.
and I've seen it done better, I'm like, okay, you guys, like I need y'all to cool it a little bit because I felt
Right.
like instead of Barbarian, people needed to be talking more about Don't Worry, Darling. That was the one that blew me out of the water last year.
See, I like Don't Worry, Darling, but it didn't like I saw it in a bad theater that had bad sound in it. Um so that kind of tainted it for me. I thought Don't Worry, Darling was really good. But it didn't I need to rewatch it again. Just to at like at home with my own setup and everything so that I can kind
Mm-hmm.
of get a better feeling for it. But I like that one. But yeah.
Yeah.
But back to Chucky because we got
Sorry.
wildly off
Wild
tangent. No, no,
tangent.
that was probably my fault because I do that.
Yeah, and
But
I'm not going to tell you not to because I do too. So
oh, I
as you've seen recently on Twitter, I'm an enabler, and so
yes,
are you. So
exactly. You guys got that one book cover though that I was talking about, right?
we definitely did. It's a problem, and I love
Yes.
that. I love that Christy, the girl that owns the Grim Poppy, was like, she
Yeah.
comments, she's like, "See, this is why y'all are my favorite," and I was like, "Stop it,
Right.
stop it." And then I saw the BOGO thing, and I was like, I said, damn you," and she said, I love you." Anyway, yeah. So definitely enabling
uh,
on both sides. I don't
yes.
stop tangents. I just indulge.
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, no, getting back to Chucky. Um it's Seed of Chucky is a lot of fun to me. I love that it the funniest thing about it is it feels like a John Waters movie. Um and the
Yeah.
fact that it actually included John Waters in the movie is
Yeah.
hilarious to me because it just feels like something he would have done. It feels like a Chucky movie done by John Waters. Um and that's what's great too is that he wanted to be in the movie. He wanted to be killed by Chucky. So and I love when a director is like fun like that.
Yeah.
So
That was
and
awesome.
I wouldn't say I'm a huge John Waters fan. I like a couple of his movies, but that's about it. I'm not fully on the Waters bandwagon there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think he's an interesting and original person. So
Yeah.
going into that, trying to tell an original story type thing. Um, but yeah, it's this one is interesting. Like, so I like the concept of them having a kid because
Yeah.
that's what this all revolves around is
Yeah.
that they have a child now. This puppet that was conceived from their um having sex in Bride of Chucky,
And
and you
Bride of
see it at the
Chucky.
end of Chucky that she gives birth. Um, and then um and then so the whole story revolves around him trying to get back with his mom and dad, finding his mom and dad and getting back to them and everything, and
Yeah.
then them corrupting him, and then he like splits into these two distinct male and female personalities, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very cool because it's like for that time period having something like a trans character or
Mm-hmm.
non-binary character
Yep.
was very original in a lot of ways, especially for a major franchise like this. And so it was really cool to be able to see Mancini um, be able to put some of this stuff actually in the series. Um,
Yeah.
and that's what made it very interesting and fun. As much as it's goofy and kind of off-putting at times and everything, it's still it was I think ahead of its time in terms of what he was trying to do. Um,
And
and I
it's
think
so wild
that's why
too
now.
like you're talking about like a killer doll that's like horrible. Like neither Tiffany or Chucky are good people, and
Yeah.
yet they're like, okay, this is like our kid. You know what I mean? Like they're so
Yeah.
like they're so oddly like okay with whatever with that, but they're not great people. So it's just an interesting
Right.
thing of like they're terrible people and they kill and they do all these bad things, but then like their kid is, you know, set up in this story in this way of being non-binary, and they're just kind of like, okay, like they argue back and forth at first, but then like you were saying, when you get to the show, it's just this like acceptance thing, and they don't care,
Yeah.
like it doesn't matter. They gender them correctly, they use the correct pronouns, like there's never this like, it's not one of those things where you get the parents that are like I just think it's an interesting thing for the serial
Yeah.
killer possessed doll to be like, yeah, my kid's non-binary.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very
No.
interesting.
Yeah. And that's what's great about it. Like, because even in Seed of Chucky, that, you know, he's trying to, Chucky's more about, oh, he's a boy, he's Glenn. And she's like, no, she's Glenda. There is that kind of back and forth. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, neither one of them is that overly concerned about it. Like towards the end
Right.
of the movie and everything like that, they just want Glenn or Glenda to be themselves, whoever they want to
Whichever that
be.
is. Yeah.
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 And so they fully accept. And so, but I also love how this movie takes this this whole thing that we had Tiffany transfer her essence into the doll in Bride of Chucky, but now we have her transferring it back out of the doll into Jennifer Tilly,
Mm-hmm.
which was like so good and so perfect in so many ways, because then you have this transformation of Jennifer Tilly into Tiffany. She changes her hair and her mannerisms to a degree and everything, but
Yeah.
nobody is wise to it for decades now.
Yeah.
Her closest friends, which she's kind of pushed away a little bit,
Yep.
but at least in terms of the movie, the movie universe, this alternate reality version,
Yeah.
she's but in this version she's Jennifer Tilly, and she's been just pretending to be her this whole time. And I love the little references and everything that come up later in the TV series, because at one point, what is it, somebody says she's running out of the Simpsons money, which is a because I looked it
Oh,
up. I was looking up Jennifer Tilly's life and stuff like that, and she actually makes money off of residuals off of the Simpsons from being in a relationship with one of the guys who helped create the Simpsons. So
yeah, because they even touch on like her Family Guy,
yeah, she did voice work for
her
Family
voice
Guy.
of Bonnie on Family Guy. They
Yeah.
even like touch on that too.
Yeah. So I love that they have these kind of like references to that, but it wasn't even her. It wasn't Tiffany doing the voice this whole time. Like they could have played it off like she was pretending, but really it was in that one episode you find out that it was actually Jennifer Tilly's still stuck in the Tiffany doll. She was doing the voice work from the cage or whatever. So
Oh my God, hilarious.
it's so funny. So
Yeah.
that's what I love about like so much of what this movie set up finally gets paid off in big ways in this second season.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I totally agree. And I was really, really late to the show. I literally just, because I think we talked about the fact that it wasn't on anything. Like it
yeah,
was, and then it finally, like the first season showed up on Shudder, and I was like, oh,
right.
finally.
But it said
And
two
then
seasons because we were having this discussion because we were both
yeah,
confused
because
because it was supposed to be both seasons and then it wasn't there. It wasn't anywhere. Nowhere had the
and it
second
was
season until
strange.
a month before the third. Yeah, because the first season came out literally like they didn't do it like how they're doing with the third season. The third season currently is the day after it comes out on Sci-Fi and USA, it drops on Peacock.
On Peacock,
Well,
yeah.
they didn't do that the first season. The first season, they did it all through Sci-Fi and USA, the whole season. And then the day after the finale ended, they dropped the whole series onto Peacock. Well, I
Yeah,
thought they were going to do the same thing with the second season, but they didn't. They didn't drop it on Peacock until about a month before the third season was
yeah, it
about
was
to come out.
And it was literally like perfect timing because it took me a while to finish the first season because shows are a time suck for me. It's very hard. So
Yeah.
I got around to finally watching the first season, watched all of that. And then, like, on my birthday, the second season dropped on Peacock. And I was like, oh, yes. And then I literally finished it just in time to wait, like, what, maybe a week before the new season came out. And then,
Yeah.
now
And
it's
I'm
on
still not
hiatus.
done. Yeah. I'm still
Well,
not
you've
done because
got
I'm
time.
always having, yeah, I've got time, but
Yeah.
it's so funny because I'm like, I never have time for anything. I'm always watching movies for
Oh,
the
I know.
show.
Yeah, I
And so
know.
I never have time to just watch something like extra with everything else that's going on in my life, work and family and everything else. So
Yeah,
it's just like, oh,
shows are a really difficult thing for me to commit to. I just really made this one work because I
yeah,
wanted to see it, and now it like the third season, you get 4 episodes, and then they're on a break until next year. So we'll see. But
yeah,
yeah, I was late to it, but it is it. You're right though. All of that craziness from Bride and especially Seed all comes back finally full circle in the
yeah.
show, and it definitely helps drive what is making the show so good. I think.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's ultimately like that embrace of the campy aspects of it that they did with Bride and especially in Seed that that campy aspect really helps push it because they are also not shying away from the more horror aspects of it as well. Like that's what makes it work so well is that they're
Yeah.
balancing it in such
Yeah.
a good way. Every episode is just balanced very well. And yeah, it just continues to work really.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree.
But yeah, no, you know, there's so much fun. These two movies are so much fun. They're
Yeah.
goofy and silly and weird in so
Over
many
the
ways.
top. Yeah.
Over the top. But so much fun. And I love that in so many ways that Seed of Chucky just kind of really ignored a lot of the human aspects. It's just Tiffany, Chucky, Glenn, and them terrorizing Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah.
That, all of that, and then just everything else surrounding her. Um, and it's interesting too, because the person who ran the effects company for that did the Chucky dolls in the first four movies,
Mhm.
it was kind of a casualty of them not having money for Seed of Chucky, was that they couldn't afford him again. And
Oh,
so this person, and if anybody's watched it, and you should go watch this, it's a documentary on Screenbox called Living with Chucky, and it's a really good documentary about the Chucky franchise and about the people who were all involved with it, and the kind of the family members who were part of it,
yeah.
and so they weren't able to have the same person from the first four movies, but the new one, Tony Gardner, came in, and he's been with them ever since. He's still the guy on the show as well. But it's funny, he played himself in Seed of Chucky, and gets his head cut off
The
and
decapitated
everything. So
guy. Yeah.
yeah. And so it's great that not only did he come in to be a part of this whole franchise, he got to be like literally part of the movie as well, and has just been with them. And it actually, uh, I think it was his daughter who was the one. Yeah, it's his daughter who directed Living with Chucky. So
No, that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, so but yeah, no, this is a very fun franchise. It's always fun to revisit it. And I
Yeah.
love that 35 years later, it's going strong, if not stronger than it ever has.
Oh my
When you
gosh.
think
Yeah.
about like the horror icons that are still going,
Hmm.
not many of them are. We haven't gotten a Freddy movie in a long time. The remake wasn't good. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great in any way. It
But
didn't
it was
help
still like
keep
that
it
was
going.
13 years ago.
Yeah. And then,
Um,
Friday the 13th was like, even longer than that, 2009. So what, 14 years ago?
yeah. Well, we're
Um,
getting the show for Friday the 13th eventually, but it hasn't come out yet.
yeah. Yeah. And we'll
Yeah.
see what happens with that, because the guy who's supposed to be show running it has just had allegations against him of sexual misconduct. So we'll see how that goes.
I didn't
Um,
know that. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, when you think about stuff that's still going strong, that the fact that Chucky is probably even more popular now than he's ever been. is just a testament to Don Mancini, and the producer David Kirshner, who's been there from the very beginning as well, and everybody who's been involved in all of it since then, is just, it's been great. And then especially the fact that we still get Alex Vincent coming back as Andy Barclay, and Christina Elise coming back as Kyle. You have these legacy characters who are still involved with it, and it's so much fun to see them still having a lot of fun and being a part of the whole storyline.
Yeah, that has been really great. I totally agree.
Yeah. But that's about all I have to say for it. Do you have anything else that you wanted to mention that we haven't yet?
I don't think so. I think we covered all the important stuff.
All right. Well, why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
Yeah, so I'm on everything. Usually if you look up Voices from the Mausoleum, you can find me. Voices from the Mausoleum is my YouTube and Instagram. Twitter is from Mausoleum. Blue Sky is from Mausoleum. I think TikTok is also, or TikTok's Voices FTM. And I'm on Facebook, but I never use it. But I'm on everywhere. Yeah. And then I have a website. It's just voicesftm.com.
Awesome. I'd definitely go give her YouTube a look. She puts out lots of videos every week. So much I can't even keep up with them.
I can't keep up with it either. I don't know.
Right. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. She talks to a lot of people, has a lot of great stuff on there. I've been on there a time or two as well. So, yeah. So, all right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It's always a lot of fun getting a chance. Yeah. Oh, it's always a lot of fun getting a chance to talk to you about anything. Yeah. So,
yeah. I agree.
All right.
Okay.
Well, that's all I got. So we'll talk to you next time. Thanks again to Angel for joining me. On Friday, Jason LeBlanc joins me to talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp. And on Monday, Amber Knapp returns to complete the Chucky series with Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky. Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is a part of the Morbidly Beautiful podcast network. Please check out morbidlybeautiful.com/podcasts for more great shows. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, please share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. Music for the podcast is Gratitude, composed by Jerry Smith. You can follow the podcast on social media at Creepy and Geeky on both Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to follow me, I'm Geek Thulu on Twitter and Blue Sky, and geek.thulu on Instagram. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.